like doing a lot of research on a topic or something. So instead, I thought that I could make a top 10 of my favorite historical movies. This is obviously just my top 10. I don't like. It can be different from your top 10. I might even have forgotten certain movie titles. But at the moment, I felt like that these were my favorite top 10 movies, historical movies. Again, if you like historical ASMR and stuff like that, please subscribe to the channel. That means a lot. And now, without further ado, let me just get started with movie number 10. Also wanted to say, this is a top 10, but there are like movies that are of equal value to me, so I just put them in a top 10. But the ranking, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't really put much thought in the ranking, but moving on. Number 10 is a movie, a German movie called Der Undergang. The English title is Downfall, I guess. And this movie shows the last 10 days as seen by the personal secretary of Adolf Hitler in the bunkers in Berlin. And yeah, it shows, it really is a really intense movie, even though it's not really like, there's not a lot of fighting in it for a war movie, but it does feel really intense because like you really get an understanding of how it felt for the Nazi head to be defeated, I guess. But it also shows like this, the fanatical side of it, and like the madness of it all, like, you know, with like people poisoning their own children, and it's based on real events. It really happened, you know. They felt like the children could not grow up in a state without Hitler, without the Third Reich. So he poisoned their own children. I guess that was Goebbels who did that, yeah. And yeah, that's really intense, you know. And this movie is just really intense if you see it. And I really like the fact that it's in German, you know. I really like the German language. A lot of people say it's too aggressive and stuff like that, but I think that the German, I really like watching German movies or hearing German dialogue. But yeah, it's also like an interesting perspective that they take the perspective of the secretary, as I already said. But yeah, it's based on real events. It's from her diary, and it really just, yeah, if you see the movie, like, if you haven't already seen it, just definitely check it out, because it's really, really good, I think. Anyways, moving on to movie number 9. This movie is called Stalingrad, and this movie is a Russian production. Yeah, that's kind of sounds funny, but yeah, it's a Russian movie, and it shows the a real story of 6 Soviet soldiers who crossed the Volga River in a massive assault to take back Stalingrad from the German oppressor. And this assault initially failed, and the Soviet soldiers who crossed the river, they end up in this house, like really close to the enemy. And in this house there's a girl living, and there's also like this, I mean, like, there's a romance in the movie, a romantic aspect for sure, because all these 6 soldiers, they fall for the girl. But it really is a war movie, mostly, you know, because it really shows how dire the circumstances were for the German and Russian side in Stalingrad, because it shows the both perspectives of the movie, of the war, which is also a huge bonus if you ask me. It's really like, and has this atmosphere to it because it's narrated in Russian and in German. It's really immersive, you know. So yeah, the movie is called Stalingrad. Definitely check it out. I really enjoyed the movie, and yeah, I really enjoyed the characters of the movie as well. It's really good. Check it out for sure. Moving on to movie number 8. This is a famous movie. The movie is called Jarhead, and it shows a American Marine in his training days and also when he's finally deployed in Iraq during the first Gulf War. Yeah, I really like this movie because of the yeah, it shows like this story about an American Marine in the Gulf War, obviously, but it shows like the nature of the Gulf War. You know, it's really different from the wars like Vietnam or the Second World War, and you have like these Marines, and they have like this desire to like protect their country and serve in the military, and they have these expectations that it's gonna be like action packed and they are ready for war. And when they get deployed, it's a whole different war that they expected it to be. It's wandering around in deserts, being constantly afraid or constantly like being edged for action, but never really receiving the action. And you really like, they really start to like doing weird stuff against their boredom, and yeah, it's a really intense movie, and I really like the main actor as well. He really plays the role very well, in my opinion. And like a really memorable scene from that movie is when they are marching through the oil fields, and the oil fields are burning, and it starts to rain oil. That really is like this. I don't know. Just imagine if you're walking in the desert and it's raining oil on your face, and you think like in 10 miles or something, there's this enemy waiting for you. It really has to feel really horrifying, if you ask me. But in a different way than, like, say, the Vietnam War and this movie, Jarhead, it really shows the strange nature of this war. And yeah, when they finally encounter the enemy, then there's this like whole scene, and it's like really unsatisfying, like on purpose. You really should check out the movie. It's really clever techniques that they instead of like showing the bombing that happens, they show it like in a reflective kind of way, so that the audience feel alienated from the experience, I guess. But that's like, I don't know. It's really good. It's a really good movie. Just take my word for it and just watch it if you haven't already. If you have, let me know in the comments what were your thoughts on it. Anyway, movie number 7. This is a really good one. It's called The Last Samurai, which a lot of people probably know. It shows the story of a captain named Nathan, and he is summoned by his general or colonel to fight a war in Japan. And there's this political figure in Japan called Omura, and he wants to modernize Japan. But the samurai, which is a class within Japanese society back then, is against this modernization, and Omura wants to have American captains and colonels to lead his Japanese imperial army, to fight these rebels, like the samurai. But then, obviously, as you might know, the Captain Nathan gets captured in a battle by the samurais, and he is a prisoner in their society. But as a prisoner, he is like really well treated, and he starts to have a really big understanding of the samurai way, and he really appreciates their way of life. And he also struggles with things from the past, wars that he had with the Native Americans, and he starts finding peace and he starts finding new perspective in life by the way of the samurai, I guess. And for someone with struggling with depression or trauma, having new perspectives can open up. It just can open up a new form of life, and that is what happened with Nathan. Eventually joining the samurai to fight the Imperial Army, and then we encounter like this really good scene. I mean, like it's not a good scene, but it's a great movie scene, but it's horrifying what happens. But you have this scene where they assault, and then a machine gun mows down the entire like head of the samurai. Like all of the samurai warriors are just mowed down with a machine gun, and this shows the contrast of the traditional warfare against the modernized warfare. And yeah, it shows like the samurai charging with a lot of honor, and that is just simply mowed down with a machine gun, which is kind of like, I think, is like the contrast between traditional way of life and modernized industry. And yeah, I don't know, modernized industry, it's efficient and it's like superior, I guess, but it's not honorable or less valuable. Yeah, I'd say it like that. Yeah. Anyways, check it out if you haven't already. Good movie for sure. Movie number 6 is Fury. This is a movie with Brad Pitt, so it's obviously pretty well known. This shows the story of a tank crew who are a tank crew of the M4 Sherman tank. Late war, I guess it's 1945, and the movie follows them into enemy territory, where they like. It really has a good, like, an intense vibe, gruesome vibe through it, because you can see like the rookie that starts as this new crew member. He starts off like having he's morally challenged because he doesn't want to shoot Germans, but then at the end of the movie, when it progresses, he's like this insane killing machine that just is mowing people down, no questions asked, and that so shows like also like Brad Pitt really portrays this really well as the captain of the tank, the commander of the tank unit. He's really like this merciless commander who just thinks like he's numbed down by war, and the rookie also experiences this throughout the film. And yeah, it's really cool film. I guess the most noticeable scene for me is when the M4 Shermans attack the Tiger Panzer, and the Tiger Panzer just is shredding down the Shermans, but eventually like the Sherman wins, because obviously that wouldn't be a movie. But yeah, it's a really good scene, that one. I really think it's a cool scene. And it's a good movie. Definitely check it out if you haven't already, as I'm saying probably like 10 times this video. But yeah. Next up is number 5, and this might be a slight lesser known movie, but it's on Netflix, I guess. It's the movie called The Siege of Juno, and this shows the story of Irish peacekeepers on a mission in Congo in 1961, and they have to protect Jalenville, which is a city in the Congos, from the Katangese, I'm not sure, Katangese soldiers and French mercenary soldiers who team up against the Irish peacekeepers. And yeah, this is a really interesting story, and I'd never heard of this incident, like of this battle, of this siege, and it's a true story. like the soldiers that were involved only got recognition for their acts like 30 years later in the late 1990s, because the EU felt that like if it was publicly known that Irish peacekeepers were fighting French mercenaries, it wouldn't be beneficial for the like European EU feeling, you know. So yeah, so they kept it quiet, and the recognition came way later. And the captain or the commander, I don't know if it's captain or not, the commander of the Irish peacekeepers, it's really, the actor really portrays the character very good. And he actually like, they were like with 100 men, and they fought off like multiple waves of attacks with thousands of Katyngi soldiers just charging, and they actually fought with until the last bullet. Then they were taken prisoners, and a month later they were released. But it really shows the bravery of those Irish peacekeepers, and it's an actual story. It's based on it, it's true. So it's like, I don't know, I never heard of that, and I was like really impressed with the movie and the story. So yeah, definitely check it out. The Siege of Juno, really good. Next up is number 4. It's called The Pianist, which is a obviously a classic in World War II movies, and it follows the Polish Jewish pianist called Władysław Spielmann. And yeah, it shows like how his family got deported to the ghettos of Warsaw, and eventually their family is deported to concentration camp. But Spielmann, he manages to escape by the help of somebody that recognizes him, because he's this famous pianist. And there's a guard who helps him escape, and he ends up back in the ghetto when it's just empty, when there's nobody there because they're all deported, and he's like surviving there with really scarce resources. So yeah, and then eventually he gets caught somewhere, and then he has to perform forced labor, but he escapes that as well. And it's really, it really shows the gruesome nature of the war in the Germans in Warsaw and in Poland in general. It's really an intense movie, but yeah, I really like the movie. Yeah, I really like the scene where Spielmann plays a pianist piece of Chopin, ballad in G minor, I guess it is. Yeah, ballad in G minor, and he plays this for the German officer who he's like questioning this whole war because the war was coming to an end, and he's aiding Spielmann, giving him his jacket eventually, and then yeah, it's a really good scene. You should check it out. Definitely check this movie out. It's really good. Yeah, moving on to movie number 3, which is called The King, and this movie shows the story of Henry V. Actually, it shows like how the Prince Hal was, how he becomes king. You know, like how when he starts to feel like a king. And to me, this movie was really good because the actor is just like a kid. I mean, like he looks like a kid, but he acts really well, in my opinion. And also the take of the battles, the fighting in the movie is really unique, and really, in my opinion, it feels realistic because it's not this Hollywood glorified type of battle that we're used to. It's really like just like knights smashing into each other in heavy armor, moving sluggishly and stuff like that. And it's a unique take on medieval warfare. I mean, like, to me it feels more realistic, but you should check it out and make the judgment yourself. But yeah, moving on to to movie stay like really historically accurate and authentic in what he was using, and they use like real actual Spitfires to film the dogfights, and they used like not an actual Messerschmitt, but they used a Spanish equivalent of a Messerschmitt, because there aren't any flying Messerschmitts today, or maybe just one or something. But anyways, it's really like they really try to stay authentic to World War II, you know. And he also didn't really use any CGI at all, which is really like he relies on practical effects, like they actually make stuff explode and stuff like that, and all. It really looks really realistic. The only downside of this is that he didn't use CGI at all, and in my opinion, if he did use a little bit of CGI, it would have been perfect, because then you could nail the true size of the battle. Now it feels like shrinked down, and like the size of the battle feels way smaller than it was, because there were like 100,000 soldiers being evacuated. But in the movie, you see like maybe 1,000 soldiers or something, because they didn't use any CGI, you know, because they have to like have real life actors there. But if they did use a little bit CGI, that would have been great in my opinion. But yeah, still a really good movie, Dunkirk. I highly recommend that one. Moving on to my favorite movie, and this one is really my favorite, at least right now. It's called 1917, and I saw it in January before COVID started and stuff. Yeah, and lockdown happened. But yeah, it's a really good movie, because they use like this tactic of this way of filming where they just follow, and it all feels like one shot, you know. They didn't use any cutscenes or stuff. It's just they follow these two young British soldiers on a mission in World War One, and it's really immersive, because it just feels like you're there with them in the trenches, crossing these fields, or in this river where they fall in eventually. And yeah, it really is really immersive. There's not really a lot of dialogue like in the previous movie in Dunkirk. There's also not a lot of dialogue, but it's just really immersive, and at least in my opinion, and it really like you really get attached to the characters even though they don't talk that much, but you just they act a lot with their faces, and you can like it's just done. It's done really good. It's really a masterpiece of cinema in my opinion. With that being said, that was the last movie on the list. So this was my top 10 of historical movies. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a thumbs up. If you didn't, leave a thumbs down. Anyways, I'll catch you in the next movie. Next